I used to think family meant unconditional love, that no matter what happened, blood would always come first. Then, my grandfather died, and everything I believed about my family fell apart in a single phone call. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what happened after the reading of that will. My grandfather, Grandpa Raymond, was the kind of man who built things with his hands and kept his word no matter what. He grew up with nothing, literally nothing. A one-room house, no running water, a father who worked himself into an early grave. He used to tell me about those winters, cold floors, empty cupboards, the kind of hunger that doesn't leave you even after you've eaten. He pulled himself out of that, started a small construction business in his 30s. Nothing glamorous, renovations, foundations, drywall, but he worked every single day. And over 40 years, that work became something real. A house that was paid off, a savings account, a small commercial property he rented out on the edge of town. And when he died at 81, quietly in his sleep, the way good men deserve to go, he left almost all of it to me. Not my mother, not my aunt, not my cousins. To me. And my sister Diana has not forgiven me for it since. Let me give you some background because this story doesn't make sense without it. Diana is 4 years older than me. We grew up in the same house with the same parents, went to the same schools. On paper, we had identical childhoods. But Diana and Grandpa Raymond, they never connected, not the way he and I did. I don't fully understand why. Some people just don't click. Diana was always closer to our mom's side of the family. She liked shopping, she liked going out, she liked the cousins who lived in the city. Grandpa Raymond was quiet and old-fashioned, and his hands were always dirty from work. She found him boring. She told me that once when we were teenagers. I remember feeling something tighten in my chest when she said it. I, on the other hand, I loved that man completely. Every summer from the time I was 8 years old, I spent 2 weeks at his house. We'd wake up early, he'd make eggs on a cast iron skillet and pour black coffee he'd let sit on the burner too long. We'd work in the yard, fix things around the house, drive out to whatever property he was working on. He taught me how to read a level, how to hang a door, how to patch drywall without it showing. But more than the practical stuff, he talked to me, really talked, about his life, about his regrets, about what it meant to be a man who kept his promises. When I was in college, I started calling him every Sunday. It became a ritual, an hour, sometimes 2. He told me about his week, I told him about mine. When I graduated and moved back to the state, not to his town but close, I started visiting once a month. When he got sick, I drove down every other weekend, sometimes more. Diana visited him twice in the last 5 years of his life. I know this because I was there for both visits. One was Christmas, one was when the doctors gave him the 6-month prognosis. That second visit lasted 3 hours. She cried in the driveway when she left and then didn't come back. The will was read 6 weeks after he passed. I was expecting something modest. Maybe the car, maybe some of his tools. He had mentioned once offhand that he wanted me to have his old level, the wooden one he used since the 70s. I thought maybe something like that. The lawyer had a quiet office, wood paneling, smelled like old paper. My mother was there, my Aunt Patricia, Grandpa's daughter from his first marriage, who I didn't know well, and me. Diana didn't come. She said she had work. I found out later she assumed she wasn't in the will at all and didn't want to sit through the humiliation. She was right that she wasn't in it, but she was wrong about what that meant. Grandpa Raymond left me the house, the savings, $230,000, the commercial property, which brought in about $1,800 a month in rental income, his tools, his truck. He left my mother a handwritten letter and his wedding ring from his second marriage. She and my grandmother had been close. He left Aunt Patricia a smaller cash amount and a piece of jewelry that belonged to his mother. And Diana got nothing. My mother called her from the parking lot. I sat in the car and stared at the dashboard and listened to one half of a conversation I didn't know how to feel about. By the time we got home, Diana had already sent me 14 messages. I want to be fair to her here because part of me has always understood where she was coming from. She was angry. That's real. She felt overlooked. She felt like her grandfather had made a judgment about her worth as a person and had put that judgment in a legal document for everyone to see. I get that. I do. The first few messages were hurt. confused. Things like, did you know about this and why would he do this? Things I could have answered gently, honestly. Things I was ready to talk through. But by the eighth message, the tone had changed. She said I must have manipulated him, that I spent years working my way into his good graces specifically to cut her out, that I drove a wedge between him and the rest of the family on purpose. That last one, the manipulation accusation, that one I couldn't let go. Because the truth is the opposite. I never once talked to my grandfather about the will. It wasn't a topic that came up between us. I visited him because I loved him. I called him on Sundays because those calls were the best part of my week. I was there when he was sick because I couldn't imagine not being there. None of that was strategy. All of it was just love, the ordinary, unglamorous kind that shows up and does the work. The week after the will was read, Diana called me. She wasn't screaming, she'd moved past that into something colder and more deliberate. She laid it out like a business proposal. Grandpa Raymond had built what he built over a lifetime. The family had sacrificed together, holidays missed, summers spent working instead of vacationing, money tight for years. She was part of that family. She deserved a share of what came from it. She wanted half. Half the savings, half the property income, the house we could figure out later. I sat with the phone pressed against my ear and I tried to think about what Grandpa Raymond would say. I tried to hear his voice, the way he talked about people who kept their word, about the difference between what was legal and what was right. He had kept his word to me. He had made a deliberate choice. He knew Diana, he knew their relationship, he knew mine. He wasn't senile. His lawyer confirmed that the will had been updated twice in the last decade, both times after careful conversation. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an oversight. It was a decision. And then I thought about something else. Something Diana had never asked me about. Something she didn't know I knew. 3 years before he died, Grandpa Raymond needed a new roof on the house. It wasn't cheap, close to $15,000. He was on a fixed income, and he didn't want to touch his savings. He asked Diana for a loan. Just a loan, he was clear about that. He'd pay it back over a few years. She said no. She didn't say she couldn't, she said she didn't want to mix family and money. I found out about this from my grandfather directly. He mentioned it once briefly, without bitterness. He told me because I asked why he hired a contractor instead of letting me help. He said he'd asked Diana first, and she'd passed. That was all he said. I paid for the roof myself. I didn't tell him at the time that I knew why he'd needed to hire someone. I just said I wanted to contribute. He argued, I insisted, we compromised. He accepted, and I never brought up Diana. But I remembered. I told Diana no. Not in a cruel way. I sat with her on a video call and I told her everything I've just told you. About the Sundays, about the summers, about the roof, about what I believed Grandpa Raymond had intended. I told her that he had made a choice. That choice wasn't mine to undo. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "So you're really gonna do this?" And I said, "I'm going to honor what he wanted." She hung up. That was 11 months ago. We haven't spoken since. Not a message, not a holiday text. My mother has tried to play mediator. She's told me Diana is devastated, that she cries when Grandpa Raymond comes up, that she regrets not visiting more, not calling more, not being the kind of grandchild who showed up. I believe all of that is true. I also believe that regret is not the same as a claim. I didn't take anything from Diana. My grandfather made a choice about his own life, his own work, his own love. He chose who had shown up. He chose who stayed. And I chose to respect that. But here's the part I think about late at night. Maybe Diana is right that none of this is really about the money. Maybe what she's grieving is the confirmation, written down, notarized, filed with the county, that she hadn't been close to him the way she could have been, that time ran out, that she can't fix it now. And maybe refusing to share the inheritance is my way of agreeing with that judgment, of letting a dead man's decision stand as the final word on her worth as a grandchild. Is that something I have the right to do? I honestly don't know. What I know is that I loved my grandfather, that the money is real and it's mine and I earned it in the only currency that matters, time and present and showing up. And giving half of it to someone who didn't do those things would feel like erasing that, like saying it didn't count. So I held the line. and I'm still not sure if I'm the hero of the story or the villain. Maybe there's no difference. If you've ever faced something like this, a choice that was legally yours but morally murky, leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me if I got it wrong, because I'm still asking myself that question. And if this story hit you somewhere real, give it a like, subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you in the next story.